Welcome to Moody Coliseum for SMU men's basketball. Tonight, I'd say maybe the most anticipated game they've had all year. Rich Phillips along with Alan Stone from the courtside location at Moody Coliseum as SMU plays the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. And more importantly, Larry Brown faces Danny Manning as head coaches here tonight.
What are my thoughts? I'm not excited about it. I'm excited that he's a coach, you know, and I'm proud of that, and I think he's going to be great. But it's a no win for me. If we win, you know, I'll be disappointed for him. If we lose, I don't enjoy losing very much, so I'm just hopeful we'll get this over with quickly. You know, I didn't coach him to a national championship. I think we had the best player in the country in Danny, and had a terrific cast around him, and it was a great ride. And I think that team, you know, did a lot of things that I think most people would respect, and he certainly was a big part of it. I told him, let's split, not even play the games. That's exactly how I feel.
Welcome to Allen Fieldhouse, everybody. How we doing?
Allen Fieldhouse is one of college basketball's greatest shrines. The fans who come here annually have expected big things from Kansas basketball for most of the last 3 decades. Big 12 championships, Final Four appearances, sellout crowds. But there was a time not too long ago when none of that was guaranteed, when one of college basketball's iconic programs was at its lowest point.
You know, Kansas had a really good season in '81, Darnell Valentine's senior year, and they got to the Sweet 16. But the next 2 years were a big disappointment.
Ted Owens was it was a monumental figure really at Kansas at the time. But, you know, looking back on it, you know, you could get a ticket to the game. You didn't have to camp out. You didn't have to wait in line. You just went to the game.
You could get any seat in the field house in 1982.
I remember playing here my freshman year, and, you know, there was 10,000 people.
It was pretty obvious that a change needed to be made. And Ted Owens, who had given him 19 years, a lot of them good, solid seasons, a couple of Final Fours, a lot of Big 8 championships, he was gone.
Following Owens' dismissal, Kansas looked to a man known for his genius and his eccentric ways to rebuild their program, Larry Brown. Brown was best known for jumping from job to job.
I bounced around. I mean, I did move.
Prior to coming to Lawrence, he held 5 different positions over the previous 11 years.
There was a sense of, what have they done? A mercenary who jumps from school to school. He's not a Kansan, okay? He didn't play at the University of Kansas. He didn't fit in.
I don't know what really the reputation was. All I know is, hey, this is an NBA coach, and he took 2 freshman starting guards at UCLA and went to the championship game.
And there was a thing about Larry Brown. He was featured in Sports Illustrated. He was a national figure.
I think Larry brought cool to Kansas.
I thought he was the coolest guy. You know, I wanted to be like him. I even got the big lamp glasses, you know, that he used to sport.
We knew he could coach, but Larry Brown at Kansas, it just didn't fit. It's like, you know, my grandfather going out and buying a Maserati. It just didn't fit, right?
Coach Smith, who was my coach at North Carolina, was a KU grad. The job came open. He recommended me. You know, I was aware of KU's tradition and how much love Coach had for the university, and so that was why I was interested.
Everywhere he had been, he had won. I think that was about as much of a home run hire as Kansas could have made at that time.
Brown added immediate hope for the future. His major goal was landing the country's best player, Danny Manning, who had enrolled at Lawrence High for his senior year after spending the previous 3 years in North Carolina. Manning came to Lawrence because his father, Ed, had joined KU's staff as an assistant under Brown.
I got a call from Gene Littles, who I had coached with Ed with the Carolina Cougars, and you know, Ed had quadruple bypass surgery a few years prior. He was driving a truck, and Gene asked me if I'd consider hiring Ed. Said, you know, we needed to get him out of that kind of lifestyle. It wasn't going to help him.
You know, he could
You know, get out of the grind and wear his body down in construction and driving a truck to getting back to something he really loved, which was a game of basketball.
And I remember a lot of people said, look, Larry, you might not get Danny by hiring Ed, but you're going to get a loyal guy who's going to help you, who cares about you. So we did it. You know, I was hopeful he'd come. I didn't hire Ed for that reason.
It came down to making the decision of either going back to the state of North Carolina or being around my family. It was a no-brainer for me. I wanted to be around my family.
All of a sudden, Kansas now had the best high school basketball player in the country targeted for the Kansas roster in the 84-85 season.
If you were a KU fan, you loved it. That was great news. I mean, it was the shot in the arm that the program needed. And if you weren't a Kansas fan, the barbs started raining down on you. Like, oh yeah, Ed Manning voted Coach of the Year by the National Truckers Association. I can see why Larry Brown wants him.
Kansas became even more attractive to Manning after Brown recharged the program in his first season. The 1983-84 Jayhawks won the Big 8 tournament and reached the second round of the NCAA tournament, but their improvement didn't mean instant respect in the rugged Big 8.
Oklahoma comes into Allen Fieldhouse in 1984, and they clinch the Big 8 regular season championship. Oklahoma pulls out the ladder and the scissors and camps under the basket and starts snipping down the nets. Now, you don't do this in someone's gym.
I just remember people at Kansas just taking that as an affront. Now, how dare you come into our arena and cut down our nets? Yeah, you won the championship, but wait till you get home to celebrate. Don't do it here on our court.
Kansas was having a hard time getting used to losing to Oklahoma, but that was just the beginning.
It was a message that, guess what? You may not think much of us, and you might be KU, and you've got this history of championships, and we don't. But guess what? We won, and you didn't.
That was Billy Tubbs, and that was his attitude, and that was his swagger.
He didn't care. You know, we won the championship. We're taking these back with us.
The Jayhawks ended their first season under Brown with a full understanding of how hard it would be to compete for a championship. What they couldn't imagine was how quickly Danny Manning would help them turn the corner. Danny Manning joined the Kansas program in the fall of 1984. At 6'11" and blessed with rare versatility for a big man, his talent was undeniable.
Danny Manning, in my opinion, was like the Michael Jordan of college basketball.
He was the best player in college basketball, hands down.
Well, he was a 6'11", 6'10" point guard.
Now everybody comes out there 6'10", 6'11", but at that time he was kind of an anomaly.
He was clearly the best player on the court, and he was the best player that Kansas had in a long, long time.
Danny was the only player that I've ever seen that can check himself back into the game. That's the kind of player he was. Danny would pull himself out, sit down, check himself back in the game, and right before the referee called him to go in the game, he would look at coach and say, who you want me to get? And I've seen this happen more than once, and I'm looking around like, am I the only one seeing this?
I think the best thing he did is make others better.
It wasn't like you were throwing it into, a black hole and just expecting him to do it all.
There's a lot of great players that attract a lot of defensive pressure that aren't great passers, but Danny was.
He knew he was good. He was confident. He could do whatever he wanted to on a basketball court, but didn't necessarily want that kind of attention.
And Larry Brown always made a point to say, you're the best player in the country. You've got to take more of a leadership role.
He had to explain to Danny, I think, that it wasn't a democracy. He wanted Danny to take charge.
As a sophomore, Manning was already a full-fledged star, but his low-key, selfless personality was a perfect fit for a Jayhawk team filled with upperclassmen as the 1985-86 season began.
I'll have a lot of people say to me, no offense, the 86 team was better than the 88. And I said, absolutely.
We had the whole package. We had the big guy, we had the guards, we had the shooters, we had the jumpers, we had the runners.
The feeling around that team was that we could not be beat.
We had grown men on that team that knew how to play.
I couldn't wait to game time because to me it was like a vacation.
Hey, we had a guy, Ronnie Kellogg. We called him Mr. Saturday. Every time we played on Saturday, he scored 30 points or more.
That team was phenomenal. Cedric Hunter at the point guard, Calvin Thompson at the shooting guard.
I don't know if there's ever been two guards on any team that shoot it better than those two. Unbelievable. Three-point line was in effect. Hey, it would have been over.
Then we had Greg Drowling, 7'1", biggest hands I've ever seen, biggest head I've ever seen.
And then, of course, Danny Manning. We had Archie Marshall coming off the bench, Mark Turgeon coming off the bench, and then I was the 8th guy on that team.
It was not a good team, it was a great team. The pieces fit perfectly.
Kansas finished that regular season ranked 2nd in the nation. The Jayhawks stormed into the Final Four, where they met Duke in the national semifinals.
They break out the red uniforms, which is really odd. I don't remember them wearing red that year, but for this occasion, they break out the red unis, and it just seems strange.
You know, that still sticks in the craw of a lot of Kansas fans. That wasn't the time to touch back into Kansas's tradition. That was the time to win the game and go to the championship game.
But what I remember about the game is Danny Manning got in foul trouble early and was not much of a factor in the game.
That was a tough one because I played a terrible game, to be honest with you. And, you know, we lost.
You know, Duke shot 34 free throws. We shot 11. We had 3 or 4 kids foul out. And people criticized Danny, but he didn't get a chance to play. It wasn't fair, but it made us better, made him better.
I think he realized that it's time for him to take the reins. So that might have been kind of the wake-up call, if you want to say, to Danny to say, okay, Danny, it's time to put the team on your back, and you can carry the team further.
You know, try to use that as motivation down the road for the rest of my college career.
Marshall. He's hurt. He injured his leg.
Adding to the misery was the loss of a key contributor. Junior forward Archie Marshall severely injured his right knee, with Kansas leading in the second half.
There's one player that kind of gets lost a little bit in KU history, and that was Archie Marshall. Archie was a pro. Archie was a big-time guy.
He made the hard things look simple. He could shoot the ball, ran the floor. He was really long.
We couldn't believe it. We really couldn't believe it. I think stunned is the best word.
I was really, really hurt because I knew we had a chance to win. Even outside of the injury, I just thought that was our year to win, you know, because we did everything that we were supposed to do.
Archie was killing us, you know, just such an athletic, smooth player, and really hard to guard. And it was a tough matchup for us, for anybody, really.
The emotion just kind of went flat, and it was, you know, during a crucial part of a Final Four game, you can't lose your emotion. You got to have that energy.
Marshall sat out the 1986-87 season in hopes of returning for his senior year. Whether Danny Manning would still be there was another story. He was an All-American and the 1987 Big 8 Player of the Year. The NBA beckoned, and Manning knew he'd be a top pick.
You know, we would joke with Danny a little bit about, you know, you got to stay, and I think his heart was always into winning a championship.
I asked Danny what his goals were, and he said, well, Coach, my mom wanted me to graduate, and I said, well, you can go in the NBA and graduate. You can come back. And he said, well, I wanted to be the #1 pick in the draft, and I said, in my mind, you'll be the #1 pick. I think people would be crazy not to take you. And he said, well, I want to win a national championship. I said, well, that's the only one. If you come out early, you can't get.
It was a quick conversation with my father. I'm mentally gearing up for this is going to be a deep conversation. You know, you're going to come in and, you know, he's going to want to hear my thoughts. I want to know, you know, different this and that. And he basically walks in my door, puts his head in, puts his foot in the door, looks at me and goes, "You're not ready." And that was the end of the conversation. And then he kind of was like, I think it was on the weekend. I think it might have been a Sunday. He's like, "Are you coming over to eat today?" Your mom wants to know. I mean, and it's just like, what?
The belief in Lawrence was that having the nation's best player, a coach like Larry Brown, and a top 10 preseason ranking would put them in the championship conversation. They had no idea how hard it would be to stay there. The 1987-88 season began with high hopes for KU's biggest star. His supporting cast, however, was largely unknown or unproven.
There was one publication that made Kansas preseason #1. It was Basketball Times magazine. But for the most part, the cast around him, you know, was not the kind that you would say, boy, this is a national championship caliber team.
Some of the guys we had on the team, you probably never heard of them.
Kevin Pritchard came in, you know, Jeff Gilner came in.
Kevin, I think, may have been the only diaper dandy other than Danny that was on the team.
We had Archie coming back. We had, you know, a 7-foot JUCO kid coming in. We had a couple of transfers, JUCO transfers.
You know, Scooter, I mean Scooter. Anybody ever heard of Scooter Bear? You heard of his dad and everyone else.
We had Chris Piper, who was there as a consistent player, who had stepped up and started to score more points.
Milt Newton, same thing. A great athlete, had never really had to produce on the court.
I remember Billy Tubbs at Media Day. We're going in there and we're like, well, you know what, how's the league? He goes, how does Danny Manning stay? He should have gone. What's Danny doing? I mean, everybody felt that way. Why is this guy hanging around? The team that was going to win it all was in 1986 and they didn't win it. Well, they were going to win it with those guys. Are you kidding me?
KU's inexperience would be a major challenge in a loaded Big 8 conference. Kansas State, Missouri, and Iowa State all had players with NBA potential, but the Oklahoma Sooners were the most dangerous of the bunch.
Most of the time we stepped on the floor and we thought we were going to win, and it was really a question by how much.
We were a run and gun team. I mean, we were the first 40 minutes of hell.
And they blew people out.
If Oklahoma State beat somebody by 15 and we could beat them by 40, we were sending messages.
That was one of his big things. I want to be the highest scoring team. I want to outscore the football team. They were putting up 60, 70 points a game.
They showed no mercy. They were like Darth Vader.
They're the guy at the top of the mountain that you just can't stand. You want to knock them off.
They had you on your heels, all night long, whether it be the pressure defensively or running at you offensively.
Billy Tubbs became the coach that people in the Big 8 wanted to beat badly. And they couldn't because his teams were so good.
He would be up by 30 and would only bring in one person, and he'd keep everybody else on the bench, up by 35. So that tells you something right there. He just wanted to rub it in.
Reporter asked Coach Tubbs, he says, Coach, why do you beat teams by so much? You know, where's the sportsmanship? And, he kind of talked a little bit like Jack Nicholson, and he was like, well, I just want to show that coach what he needs to work on.
I think a lot of people confuse confidence with arrogance, maybe.
They were trash talking, they were good, they backed it up.
They would do the cabbage patch on the sideline when they're up by 20 or whatever.
Oklahoma kind of adopted that as their, we beat you, we disgrace you type of a celebration.
Willie the Wildcat, our mascot, was a former high school player, and he hopped in the layup lines with them, and they let him do it. And he was dunking in the layup lines with them, and that's just the way they played. They had fun.
Not only did they run and gun and dunk, which all of his teams did, but they also defended you. They shared the basketball. They had a number of weapons, and that's when you began to realize this might be a special team.
KU's season began in paradise. Kansas was playing in the Maui Classic and eager to make a statement. The message they sent wasn't hard to miss. They dropped their first 2 games, including a 19-point loss to Iowa.
I think that there was a bit of jostling on our part as far as establishing the team and the roles early on, and that had a lot to do with us stumbling.
We had Marvin Branch, 6'11", 6'10", supposedly from Detroit, supposedly a big tough guy. And Marvin, I think he threw a punch, and Marvin started backing up. And after the game, I just remember Coach Brown looking at Marvin, and he says, Marvin, you're supposed to be a tough guy. He said, if that wall wasn't there, you would have backtracked all the way into the Pacific Ocean. And we couldn't laugh because, he would have jumped on us, but after we left the locker room, he said, Marvin, you would have been in the Pacific Ocean. You would have needed a life raft.
Iowa and Illinois both really took it to us, and I think demonstrated that maybe we weren't as good as we thought we were.
The Jayhawks had plenty of problems away from the court as well. 5 players would ultimately be dismissed for various reasons, including Branch, JUCO transfer Otis Livingston, and freshman Mike Masucci.
During the off season, it's all about the players. What's best for those players. During the season, it's what's best for the program and our team.
Coach Brown is not going to sacrifice the success of the team for any one individual.
Some of the guys didn't quite buy into that message, and they wanted to be the star themselves. They wanted to be flashy. They didn't just want to make the easy play.
I used to call us it's like the Back to the Future. You take the picture at the beginning, and then over time we just fade. It's like the faces aren't there, we're not there anymore.
The overall inconsistency and lack of depth took its toll. The real heartbreak came in a loss to St. John's.
It was just a situation where once I felt my knee buckle, I knew it was over.
I remember Coach Brown coming off the floor, and he couldn't speak in the timeout that we had. He was just so upset because we all knew that Archie had put so much effort into coming back.
You know, he was about as popular as any kid that I ever coached. Everybody loved him. And I think it was a blow that took us a while to recover.
Not only for our loss as a team, but just to see him go through that again, it was tragic.
The Jayhawks continued to struggle after Marshall's injury. At one point, they dropped 4 straight conference games and stood at 12-8. Their national ranking was gone, along with the optimism of their fans.
We had the crowd booing us. And, I'll tell people that now, they're like, oh no, not the greatest crowd in the world. And I'm saying, yeah, and we deserved it.
This is going to be one of the most monumental meltdowns in recent college basketball history.
We're thinking we're going to be able to get in the NIT. There was a lot of talk along those lines.
I mean, this is, God, Danny Manning, what a terrible decision to come back. He came back for this?
By mid-season, injuries, academic issues, and attrition forced Larry Brown to turn to the Kansas football team to fill out his roster.
Well, we needed to find players somewhere, and Wichita State dropped their football program, and Clint Normore came, to KU to play football. I had recruited him out of high school to play basketball.
Well, I've always played basketball. Basketball was my life. In fact, football was kind of just something to do.
Football players, stereotype them. These guys fit that stereotype of being tough, hard-nosed, aggressive players.
You couldn't scratch Clint. I don't know if he, you could punch him anywhere, it wouldn't hurt him.
I could tell the first day at practice that Clint came in, he was going to play.
He added that element of no fear.
And Marvin Maddox, he played hard. He knew if he got the ball, you didn't want to get in the way because he's going to hit you hard.
We came in and brought in that physicality that made our players much tougher, and it made practices much tougher.
I remember a little flare-up in practice where one of the new guys that ended up not being on the team tried to, do something with Clint, and Clint said, we're not going to do it this way. And he made sure that the other guy knew it.
Even if it was just a practice ploy, it helped the chemistry of the team. And then those guys ended up actually playing.
As the roster took shape, Brown also began to find moral victories in some difficult losses, including an 11-point defeat to Kansas State in Lawrence.
If you're going to lose to anybody, don't let it be K-State.
Mitch Richmond had an incredible game. They broke a 55-game home winning streak at Kansas.
I think at that point, it was the lowest point of the season.
We all went in the locker room expecting just an absolute burner. And Coach Brown came in and he deceivingly lied to us pretty well and said, you guys are getting better.
He just walked in and said, look guys, I see it. I really see it. And I think we're gonna be a good team. We still gotta keep working, but I see us coming around.
And we're looking at each other like, okay, now Coach has lost it. We just got beat again. And he's saying that we're getting better, and he's actually happy about the situation.
I wasn't seeing what he was seeing. I can tell you that.
It was the absolute right thing to say because we were all just waiting to have our practice jerseys hanging up and go back out and practice. We needed that right then. We were at the point that it could have been all over.
The Jayhawks also found a resolve in some of their unsung players. One of the most important was swingman Jeff Geldner. He joined the starting lineup for the Oklahoma State game in Stillwater.
Basketball's such a delicate balance. You're not exactly sure sometimes why certain things work. It just did.
And Coach Brown's very superstitious. I started, we won, so I was going to start again. And we went on a little bit of a roll.
When he got into the game, the ball swung a little faster. He knocked down open shots, and that's it.
Up until that point, I think we were searching. We were going in the wrong direction. The team that went on the floor at Oklahoma State actually shot the three-point a little bit, but more important than anything, we defended.
The Jayhawks avenged their earlier defeat to Kansas State with a win in Manhattan, then played well, despite losing an overtime thriller to Duke. But it was a loss to Oklahoma during that time that really opened some eyes.
We were always told we couldn't run with them.
It's like getting into a fast car. For the first time, you don't know what to expect. But once you've driven it 3 or 4 times, you know where it breaks, where it leads.
Everybody says, oh, they crushed you during the season. Well, they only beat us by 8 down in Norman, and I think Danny fouled out at the end of that game.
There was no fear factor there. There was more of a sense of, we know these guys.
Duke and Oklahoma were KU's only losses in the final 10 regular season games. Things were looking up as Danny Manning headlined senior night at Allen Fieldhouse. But while he scored 31 points and grabbed 10 rebounds against Oklahoma State, the lasting memory of that game will always be an air ball.
I had no idea I was going to step out on the court. And when Coach called my name to come up, all I can think at that point is, what are you doing?
Coach Brown yells down to me. He said, I'm putting Archie in. And the place goes nuts when Archie starts walking in. He can barely walk. We had a kid named William Woods. We called him Cookie. He was leading the timeout, and I said, hey, Cookie, don't get close to him.
Senior Archie Marshall walked onto the court. He never thought he'd be doing this after a knee injury, and he's going to shoot one. Get in there, Archie.
They allowed Archie to catch the ball and sling one up in the direction of the goal. But it was a great moment. I don't think there were any dry eyes in Allen Fieldhouse to see Archie get that chance.
Archie meant a lot to our team, and just having him around meant so much. And to see him in the game one more time, I'm pretty sure I won't forget it. I'm pretty sure Archie will never forget that too.
You're only as good as your last game, you know, and that right there gave me the opportunity to walk off the basketball court. And that meant a lot to me.
Given the way the season had gone, the emotion of senior night had been a highlight. What the fans in the Fieldhouse and across the nation didn't know was that Kansas was just getting started. Kansas earned a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament despite a difficult Big 8 tournament performance. Along with losing a second game to Kansas State, the Jayhawks feared that they'd also lost guard Kevin Pritchard to a knee injury.
They've gone through this horrible season in which injury and dissensions and suspensions and problems have paired the roster and limited their talent. And now, when it's crunch time, it looks like they might have lost a point guard.
When you go through adversity, that's when you really find out about your team. And I don't think many teams went through the adversity that group did.
At that point, I think we were numb to anything that you could do to us.
Kansas has 21 wins and 11 losses. 21 and 11. And I'm thinking, oh man, they're one and done. This is awful.
Luck had been scarce in the regular season, but it quickly found KU in the big dance. Playing in the Midwest region gave them 2 games in nearby Lincoln, Nebraska.
There were a lot of non-KU fans who thought, why are you just sending them up the road here to Nebraska when a team with double-digit losses that was lucky to get a 6th seed gets to play so close to home?
And then to make matters even better for us, Xavier, one of their players, said Nebraska's like Siberia with 7-Elevens. And so that made all the Nebraska people upset.
As soon as we got out there, we were the home court. There was no doubt about it.
And the first play of the game, we threw a long pass to Kevin Pritchard to test him his knee, and he scored.
And hey, Kevin's okay. I think the whole team realized it. Let's go.
Murray State had knocked out NC State. A 14 had beaten a 3. Kansas was supposed to play the Wolfpack in the second game.
North Carolina State lost early on, Pitt lost. It just kind of started all kind of falling into place for Kansas again, and the momentum started to build.
After beating Xavier and Murray State, the Jayhawks met Vanderbilt in the Sweet 16.
And you're like, what a great way. Hey, good for them. Now they're going to get killed in the Sweet 16, but good for them.
Vanderbilt turned out to be a good matchup for us in that Will Purdue wound up being a great pro. He wasn't going to guard Danny.
The win over Vanderbilt set up an Elite 8 for the ages.
We turn on the television, and it's Kansas State and Kansas, and we couldn't believe it. There's no way Kansas is going to beat Kansas State. They're going to kill them, and they're going to stick the knife in, and they're going to twist it around a little bit up there in Detroit because they hate KU.
The 4th meeting of the year would also be the biggest in the long history of the KU-K-State rivalry. The prize? Home court advantage in the Final Four.
The Final Four was in Kemper Arena that year. The 50th Final Four was coming to, to Kansas City.
You know, we had unbelievable respect for K-State and Lon Kruger and Mitch and Steve Henson and their team.
We knew them, they knew us, there were no surprises. It almost felt like an NBA Game 7 of a 7 series.
We know that if we can limit Mitch, we got a good chance to win that game.
Milt guarded him in Lawrence, and Mitch had a great game.
I kept the stat sheet and brought it with me to Pontiac, had it in my locker, and I just remember saying, whatever, he cannot have a game like this again.
As good as Danny Manning was that day, as good as Kevin Pritchard was that day, in that game, I thought Milt Newton was the best player Kansas had.
We defended the hell out of Mitch, and we had to do it as a team.
Scooter Berry, I remember, had maybe the game of his life. He had a terrific ball game.
I think that was the first game that I didn't hesitate to shoot. You know, Coach had said, you are the unknown Jayhawk. They don't really know that you can shoot because you never shot the ball, so shoot it.
Well, I don't think anybody could believe that we were in the Final Four. Maybe not even including us. You know, it's all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, we won 4 games, we're here.
KU fans took to the streets and stayed until the team arrived at the field house later that evening.
We struggled through a hard year, and you've been behind us, and we really appreciate it. And we're going to go to the Final Four and do our best for it.
But the celebration in Lawrence was nothing compared to the party the Jayhawks were about to throw in Kansas City. The Jayhawks were at home in Kansas City with more confidence than ever and one new member.
I brought our bus driver, Jimmy Dunlap, from Detroit to Kansas City with us.
Larry was very superstitious to the nth degree. Like, we weren't allowed to get haircuts on the day of the game.
Jimmy, we may have been running late or something was going on, but he got us where we needed to get on time, and he took care of us.
We got that good vibe with Jimmy, and Coach is like, we're holding on to this guy. He's the reason why we're winning.
Everybody thought I brought him because I was superstitious. Yeah, that was one thing, but he also took care of a kid that had an inoperable brain tumor who became a big part of our program, and I saw the way he treated Ryan Gray, so that was one of the reasons I brought him. But we had a lot of things in our favor, you know, playing in that Final Four.
KU would need more than superstition to get past Duke, a team that had already beaten them in overtime at Allen Fieldhouse.
I mean, you couldn't write it better. We were playing in a familiar area. We were playing against familiar teams.
We had Duke down here in Allen Fieldhouse, 18 points, I think, and they came back, so we knew we could play with them.
I just wanted to make sure that I went out there and did the best that I could do that night. Just not have another game like I had in '86.
5 minutes into the game, you wonder where Duke is. They haven't showed up yet. Kansas got off to a fantastic start, scored the first 12 points of the game.
Duke was a team where, you know, they would slap the ground and get into you defensively.
It's 18-2, it's 24-6.
When they started denying our passing lanes, that was our key to go back door.
It's an incredible, unbelievable start for the Jayhawks against Duke.
Backdoor, layup after layup after layup.
That game was a vengeance game. You beat us at home, and we are gonna pay you back.
When the game was over, my only thought was these guys are so exhausted. Will they have enough to come back and even play a game on Monday? Because they really left it on the court in that ball game.
What Kansas cannot do is to get in a running game early. They can run with Oklahoma, but they can't beat them playing this kind of a game.
In 2 games, Kansas had avenged 2 of its last 3 losses. Only one team remained on the Jayhawks' revenge tour, Oklahoma, but not many believed that final victory would come.
We were in a bubble. We didn't care about anything else. We didn't care about what anybody said. We heard Dick Vitale doing his screaming and saying no way we could win. It didn't bother us.
We gave ourselves a chance. Even on the bus right there, I remember reading a quote where Wilt Chamberlain didn't think we could win. I said, he's the KU alumni. He doesn't think we can win.
We wanted to play Duke because we got tired of hearing about how good Duke was in ACC. So we really wanted to play them. We weren't even thinking about KU.
We beat them twice that year before we got to the NCAA. But both of them were close games. We beat them by 8 points both times, which was about as close as games that we were playing.
You know, you have to feel comfortable and feel good about yourself, like, oh, this is going to be the easiest national championship game ever. It wasn't.
Now Pritchard in the middle, pull up jump shot, and Erik has decided to go right after the defense. Missed the shot, and now Eldner comes back for the Jayhawks.
Super defense by Piper.
This time the pass, and Newton comes to the glass, and this Jayhawk team is on fire here tonight.
There was no plan to run with them. I mean, Coach Brown adamantly told us before we went out there, do not run with these guys.
He says, guys, let's take care of the ball. Let's value the basketball. We know how they like to run. Let's not play their game. And as soon as he leaves the huddle, Danny says, guys, forget that. But he used a different word. He said, forget that. Let's run with them. And we all said, let's do.
Now Newton down. Wrap around. Beautiful shot by Newton.
It's a freaking track meet. And I'd never been so tired in my life.
You know, the only way you're going to beat a press is to try to attack it.
He said, take the opportunities. He kept saying, take the opportunities. Take what the defense gives you.
They had guys who I don't even think were basketball players making shots they had never made.
There's one of them, Normore, the football player. He drives for the layup.
He comes in the biggest game of his life, and he looks like a guy who's all Big 8. You know, he's making layups, he's shooting jump shots. I mean, he hit one jump shot. I'm looking around and said, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Because I'd never seen him before.
At that point, it was, you know what? This is how the game is going to be played. We're going to live in the moment, and we're going to go.
Lob pass to Manning. Beautiful pass by Berry. Now on the turnover, Manning goes for the home run. Normore for the layup. Steal by Manning. He'll put it down. Here we go. Oh, and he'll come to the line. Oh, what a play.
At halftime, score is 50-50. We ran with them. We played their game.
50-50, 50th Final Four. For me, that was the funnest half I've ever played in basketball. We go in at halftime and, you know, coach, the main message, other than, you know, what the hell are you guys doing, was, guys, you just played 20 minutes of Oklahoma basketball and you played right with them. What are they thinking right now? Oh my gosh.
We put them in a position that they've never ever been in. It's almost like, you know, you punch them in the mouth and they see the blood, and they've never bled before.
We're all screaming and yelling, it's your fault, you know, play defense, stop shooting so much.
We didn't think Kansas could play that good in the second half.
And I remember Coach Tubbs coming in with his, you know, little drawl like, hey, it's gonna be all right. Trust me, we're gonna get them this half. Just relax. We're gonna win this game.
Halftime was finally, okay guys, you made your point. You can run with Oklahoma. Now, we played their game, let's make them play our game.
And he leaves the huddle and Danny goes, hey guys, I think we should listen to Coach this half. So we slow it down.
At one point we had Danny bringing the ball up the floor to slow it up, just so that we wouldn't have that pressure and that constant, you know, Mookie Blaylock and Ricky Grace in your shorts for 94 feet.
We didn't have an answer for that. Now I have an answer for that today, but that doesn't work as good today. I wish I had the same answer back then.
Manning off a fake with a great play.
Tubbs got out coached that game, and Danny played the best game of his college career.
On a night when Kansas scored a lot of baskets, Danny got just about every big basket.
And I remember Danny playing a large part of that second half with 4 fouls.
I'll tell you, I was nervous. If Danny would have picked up another foul, we'd have been in big trouble.
My guts are, you know, tight, and I'm feeling, oh no, not like 86.
Hey, let me say, he should have fouled out a couple of times in that game.
Oklahoma fans are like, what does it take to get the 5th foul, you know? And there was a sense with 2 minutes to go, if he's out, this game turns around.
That foul would never come. Manning provided a legendary Final Four performance with 31 points and 18 rebounds, but it was the almost flawless game played by a supporting cast that had the Jayhawks on the verge of a championship.
They all were special, and there wasn't a kid that we played that didn't make a contribution.
Well, I think the other guys shot 70-some% in the game. They just didn't miss any shots.
Normore penetrates, drops it off to Piper, at the buzzer, it's the field goal.
Gonna happen, it appears, and it comes to Grace. 2 seconds, a long shot, no good. It's over. The dream is real. Kansas has won the NCAA title. Oh man, look at them, everybody hugging and crying. The dream is reality. Hoop it up around the Sunflower State. Kansas Jayhawks are national champions.
After all the setbacks, disappointments, and frustrations, the Jayhawks had delivered the second NCAA title in school history. They had realized their own dreams and, in the process, set the stage for a golden era of Kansas basketball.
Where everybody was at with football season.
We just have something to say to the OU bench.
The days that followed KU's national championship were filled with elation.
We felt like we were the Beatles. We felt like rock stars. I mean, really.
Cinderella had made a home in Larryville, and even Jimmy the bus driver found his way into the celebration.
They just go to show that regardless of what profession you're in, you can become a star.
When the afterglow faded, Larry Brown found himself facing a familiar question. Would he stay or go?
The story that I'd always heard is that Larry Brown had agreed that he was going to return to UCLA. On his flight back home to Kansas, he changed his mind.
You look at the situation, okay, we just won a national championship. We can't accomplish anything else. Danny's leaving. Big, that's a big deal right there. You just lost the best player arguably in college basketball history, but definitely one of the ones in KU basketball history.
And they call a press conference inside Allen Fieldhouse kind of hurriedly.
I came back, and after thinking about it, I've decided to stay at the university.
And he almost put his hand over his mouth like, I can't believe I said that. Word spread like wildfire across campus. I mean, it was, he's going to stay.
I know Jayhawk fans everywhere are rejoicing that next year I'm the only one moving back to California.
I've never been anywhere 8 years, so I just don't quite know how to react.
Brown's comment proved to be prophetic. Weeks later, he left Kansas for the San Antonio Spurs. Manning would become the top pick in the NBA draft. A recruiting violation led to the NCAA banning Kansas from the 1989 tournament, but the Jayhawks didn't suffer long. KU hired Roy Williams, who continued what Larry Brown had started.
I think you can make a case that since the 83-84 season, Kansas is in the top 3 of basketball programs in that time, and it started with Larry Brown, continued with Roy Williams, and now continues with Bill Self.
I don't think I've cheated any program I've ever gone to. I always feel like they were better off after I left than when I got there.
Even though it was only 5 years, he's played a huge role. Everybody should love Coach Brown around here, and everybody should love Coach Williams around here. And I'll be honest with you, everybody should love Coach Owens around here. He went to 2 Final Fours, and you stop and think about who hasn't been successful as the head coach here. Every one of those guys has played a huge role.
Kansas has been so good for so long that it's easy to forget the difficult times. The players on that 1988 championship team never do.
What made it so special is how dark it was. I mean, it was a dark time. In the middle of the season at KU, I'm not saying people gave up, but our chances were slim.
I think that makes it even more great, is to come out of the blue. I like being the underdog.
To be able to be out there with those guys and go through what we went through and be at rock bottom and then be at the pinnacle is an unbelievable journey.
Those players and coaches are deep into their careers and embracing time with their families. But every now and then, they savor their legacy. They aren't the most talented team in the history of the tournament, nor are they the most celebrated. Their place in the game has more to do with the magic that is most visible in March. It was, in other words, the stuff of miracles.
Danny and the Miracles to me is perfect. I have no problem with it. It was a miracle season for us.
It's fine. I mean, like I said, if they want to copyright it and put it on a shirt, I'll be one of the Miracles. I'm fine with that.
It's endearing in a way, right? You know, we're part of the Miracles, but it's also like Gladys Knight and the Pips, you know, we're really not the headliner, which we get.
Danny became the Rock, and the whole comment about Danny Manning and the Miracles and all that did not bother any one of us.
We did it as a team, and that's the thing that Danny gets upset about sometimes, I think, is he thinks that Danny and the Miracles means it wasn't a team, but it was.
We were a good team. You know, we weren't the best team. We weren't the most talented team, but we were the best team in terms of playing together and being unselfish. I don't know, I think I'd like for you guys to put this in your article, that to anybody who's ever involved in any type of tournament or competition of any kind, to keep your head up and to work hard, and who knows what can happen. And this is from the guys on the team. They said, to all the people who said it couldn't be done, that we would finish the national champs at #1, how do you like us now?